Hello, and welcome to Cad Bashing Plaguebearers. Today I'm going to be making some Plaguebearers for my Nurgle army. These come from the Beastarium miniatures model line. I found them on my mini factory, and frankly, just finding these miniatures made me want to make this army. I've been playing off Chaos for a while, a couple years now, but ooh man, after seeing all these models and their entire line, I absolutely love them. Here are my support settings. We'll be doing these out of resin on my Creality resin printer. And frankly, the files are gorgeous. They printed good, they look good. I think after 25 models, I maybe lost a foot and a couple claws. That's pretty good. And also, if you join the Patreon and you get into Beastarium's file selection, you get a lot of nice plus extras. If you saw on the table, there's some heads and some hands and some arms and a lot of pieces, and I think that's from one of the gift sets that they give out when you join their Patreon. Here I'm just showing off that I have the skull set from Citadel, you know, that big 250 skulls thing, and that's my way of making these kind of look more Warhammer. The Nurgle army demons are kind of playful, and these I wanted more like The Thing, you know, giant leech creatures being vomited out of these withered, malnutritioned, poor things, and so heads, pieces, barely joining, you know, joining at the hip, other oddities, and hopefully they'll look disgusting in the end. Here we go. I'm starting with the German Yellow from Vallejo, and I don't really want all these demons to match. I want to kind of have a scale of color throughout. So I'm going to be working up and down the scale from German Yellow to the Vallejo Goblin Green or Game Color Goblin Green. And really I'm just looking for a off sickly pale tone, maybe avocado-ish, maybe, you know, a little lime-ish, but nothing bright, nothing stark, nothing jubilous, you know. I want a real gross color. The guy with the bone helm, he was the only one that I broke the big leech off of, so I figured he was a good candidate to put that like goat devilish skull on top of. A lot of these things are going to have either skulls or arms or faces sticking out of them. Yeah, these are just base coats at this point. Now I'm going to do these worms, all these gross leechy worm things that are crawling out of the mouths. These I'm doing all fleshy colors, so, you know, pinks and not quite a flesh tone, but more on the pinky, fleshy, grossy side. I also found later on that in doing these base tones, I mixed a few that had the darker greens with magenta washes. You know, like while the paints were still wet, I did a wet mix from top to bottom with magentas on top, going to like a pale dark blue green on the bottom. And if I knew that color scheme was going to look so good, I might have done at least half the army like that. But I still have plenty to do, so maybe we'll do some more later. I'm still just finishing up these worms, putting little bony tips and sections here and there, and now I'm going back and making sure all the bones are the proper color. This is just like an off gray. I think it's called it's some kind of Vallejo gray. It's barely not white, and you know, it just takes a little brightness off of it, and I like gray for that. Good for skulls, good for bones, good for claws. These aren't really creatures that are, you know, like a Marine force or or Imperial Guard force, where they have lots of contrasting colors and a lot of bits and things to look at. So depending on your preference of how detailed you want to get with these, you know, you could just do a couple basic colors. But, you know, I really wanted to show that there's bones and mandibles and different spiky bits here and there. So here's all the really basic base colors done. You can see how terrible they look without washes or anything yet. But that's okay, we got a long way to go. Now originally I started out with a Agrax Earthshade, and I liked it. It works good on the lighter colors, like the limier ones, or the ones that are just a lot brighter. But as I started getting to the darker demons, it didn't stand out nearly as good. So even though all I'm showing here is the Agrax Earthshade wash, I definitely went over a bunch of them with some Nuln Oil also, just to make sure all the details stands out, especially in the ribs and the recesses and the bones and stuff like that. Just the Agrax, it's brown based instead of being black based, and it just doesn't stand out nearly as good as the Nuln Oil does. So when needed, just apply some more. And now we kind of see them looking towards what we're, looking better. Now that all these are nice and washed, I'm going in with, a higher coat of detail. This is going to be your preference. I think of them as diseased, blotted, blighted creatures, right? So I don't really want their marks and their boils and their discoloration to really blend into the background of the creature. So a lot of these have two color blends, but I'm gonna stick with a really high contrast, usually like yellow, brighter color, and just kind of plop it over the top, as if it's not a legion on the skin, but highly discolored. There's a stark difference from what's bright and the skin underneath. If it's too bright or if you don't like the look, you can go back and blend them out a little bit. But for me, this was fairly intentional. And I find that the models that had a two-tone look to them, they kind of have a more stark, brighter contrast, you could say to them, when you use just one bright color. Or if you're trying to match each bright color, like say magenta to the green, by putting yellow over both, man, it really stands out against both, compared to if you were trying to put like light magenta on the magenta and light green on the green. Then you're getting into more like a realistic look. But for this, I want it to really stand out from tabletop perspective, and I want it to be bright and plague looking. But again, preference. If you want that more subtle look, like they went on living like that for years and years, then yeah, maybe that's what their skin looks like. Okay, and now moving on to the worm sections. Just whatever flesh tone you used for them. Add a little white or cream or whatever lightning color you think would look good, and lighten that color up, put you some highlights, and make some, different sections in all the segments. It's a disgusting, jointed looking worm crawling out of a dude's face, so, appropriate. Now, this is an experiment. I had seen somebody else do this before, and I never tried it, and I figured I'm going to have a lot of these, so I might as well give it a try. I'm just going to do some wet color palette-like blending on top of these bases. Picking a few different colors, greens, purples, kind of matching, but using bright contrasting colors of, the model I have on top. Altogether, the process was pretty interesting. The colors I probably liked the most were the darker ones, like the blues combined with the greens, and the greens with just a little bit of white, I think probably looked the best. It was an interesting experiment, but ugh, I could have done better. If there's one thing I gotta say, my bases are FDM printed, and depending on which way you flip them depends kind of how porous they are. And I would definitely use the flat side on top. A lot of times I don't use the flat side on top just because I'm going to put texture or something. But for this, I would definitely use the best side you have, just because if the paint soaks in or if it doesn't quite coat it, you can see right through it. So if you're wanting to do a better than me blending look on your base, just make sure your base has a really good smooth surface worthy of accepting the paint. You'll see the surfaces that aren't, the more porous ones, they just kind of soak it up and you don't get a nearly good as look on it. And here's a extra fast time lapse so you can see what they look like. Now the one step I missed was off camera to get that beautiful glowing effect out of those eyes. Just put you one dot of cold white, whatever highest contrast you have white where you want the eyes, and then just a nice light tone of Tesseract green Citadel, and best glowing effect you'll ever have. You could do it with normal paint, but the Tesseract with just that effect works so good. And here's our guys. Here is a set of 6 or 7 to start you out, and then after this on my off time I did another 20 to round out 25. Altogether, this was a real easy to accomplish paint job. The prints were easy, the beautiful models from Bestarium Miniatures. Liked everything about it. I will definitely have at least 50 or 60 of these guys on tabletop pretty soon to play with. I really enjoy how they look. Definitely a more heavy metal Nurgle look. If you like what you saw here, please like, subscribe, check out the other videos. Stay tuned. I got a lot more videos coming, and if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. Thank you again.